I call on the Guard Commander of the Catafalque Party to have the Catafalque Party take up its position around the memorial. Members of the East Timorese community, association members, family and friends of the 2nd welcome to this, the 67th commemoration service of the 2nd Commando Association. Thank you all for joining us. This year is the first year that we've been able to stream video of this ceremony live to the internet. So if you're watching from Canberra, Dili, London or anywhere else in the world, thank you as well for joining us. 2016 has so far been a year of considerable change, politically, environmentally, socially in so many ways. One notable change is that this year is the first year that we've not had a member of the unit present at this ceremony. There are very few surviving veterans. Keith Hayes is unwell but sends his apologies and his best wishes. For all of that change, it somehow feels right and good that we're here again at the same time and at the same place to pay an important tribute to the men of the 2nd and to the East Timorese who provided such important help to them. We also remember and give our thanks, of course, to all Australian servicemen and women who have served this country in any conflict or peacekeeping role. I'm delighted that our Catafalque Party today comprises Army cadets from 53 Army Cadet Unit Wanneroo, who are with us under the command of Captain Andrew Hayes. You may have noticed that most of us on the 2nd Committee are not exactly spring chickens. It's fantastic to have young people providing such an important part of our ceremony. The youth are, of course, the future, and I'm very pleased that these fine young cadets have chosen to help us to commemorate the 2nd today. We will now sing the national anthem. Please stand. Please be seated. In a few minutes we will lay wreaths to pay tribute to the men of the 2nd, and I'd like to just give you some information about the sequence of events. In a moment, our piper, Sergeant Vern Jones, will begin piping a lament. While the lament is playing, the first wreath will be laid by Chris Clark, daughter of 2nd veteran Jack Wicks, and Luca Bongiovanni, Chris's grandson, on behalf of the association. After that, if anyone else would like to lay a wreath, please feel free to do so. Thanks to all of those who've laid wreaths today. You're probably aware of the unit's history, a book called All the Bull's Men, written by Cyril Arris. We've recently made the book available for purchase as an e-book in PDF form via our website. If you haven't read the book, you should. There's a tale in the book about a death curse. An East Timorese boy, Beramo, was Paddy Wilby's criado. He was convinced that a local chief had cursed him and that he was going to die. He was lying down, ready to die, and was sweating profusely. Some of our soldiers very cleverly managed to lift the curse by causing the young man to forget about it. One of the Australians who were involved was a George Stricky Strickland, who gave his gin ration to the young criado to lift said curse. That is not, of course, George Strickland's only claim to fame, but I enjoyed it. It's not every day that you can save someone's life with gin. I'm very pleased to say that George's son, Noel Strickland, is with us today and has accepted our invitation to deliver the address. Please welcome Noel.
Whilst I hadn't heard that story before, I'm not surprised. Okay, welcome family and friends of the 2nd Commandos. I'd like to thank the committee for inviting me to present this address, as it's given me the opportunity to not only think about the role of the 2nd Commandos during World War II, but more specifically the part played by my father, Sapper George Strickland. Dad came into this specialist company from a slightly different background to many of his mates. Dad did not grow up in country WA, but in the Perth suburb of Bassendean. He only went to school to the end of primary school. He loved sport and was a very handy footballer, playing in the Metropolitan Juniors, which was a forerunner to the Waffle, and trained and played reserves football with the fledgling Swan Districts Football Club. In his mid-teens, he started a carpentry and joinery apprenticeship. This training, together with his childhood of roaming the streets of Bassendean, swimming in the upper reaches of the Swan River, made him a candidate with the skills needed to join this specialist commando unit. Like many of his mates, Dad did not speak openly of his experiences during the war. As a child, I knew that Dad had fought in the war and that a lot of his friends did as well. I remember getting together with families for the annual Christmas tree where children received presents. I remember Dad attending regular meetings and games evenings, the latter I think being an excuse to get together to have a drink. I also remember Dad catching up with his mates, and names like Bill Epps, Norm Thornton, Bob Smith, Keith Hayes, Doc Wheatley, Joe Poynton, Bill Howe, Wilf Marsh, Jerry Green regularly being used in our household. As a very small child, I remember Sunday mornings being really special. Dad used to work 6 days a week, so Sunday was the only day we woke up to him being home. All children, 4 of us, would clamour into Mum's and Dad's bed, and eventually, after we'd pressured him, Dad would get his army rifle down from on top of the wardrobe so we could shoot it. This went on for a long time until till one day Mum found my brother and myself climbing up onto the wardrobe to get Dad's rifle. That was the end of the rifle at home. I also remember a little yellow pattern woven pouch that Dad used to keep in his drawer. In the pouch was some Japanese money, Japanese and Portuguese money. This, together with 2 leather wallets with the Australian coat of arms on, were cherished by him. In the early days, Dad did not attend the Anzac Day commemorations. However, in the early 70s, when there was an anti-war movement, which led to questions being raised about the place of Anzac Day in our society, Dad became a regular attendee of the march and the lunch that followed. It was after one of these lunches, when I was picking Dad up from Anzac House, or a pub nearby, that I saw some unusual emotion from Dad. I asked him how the day had gone, and he did not answer, but he looked away from me out of the window. I could see he had a tear in his eye, so I didn't press him. I later found out that one of his mates had collapsed during the march, and it had really upset many of the diggers. This brought home to me how really close they all were. As I said earlier, Dad did not speak much about his experiences. With Dad's trade background, it's not surprising that he was in the engineers. And all I know from Dad is that they would build a bridge, a few days later it would be blown up, and then they'd go back to rebuild it. I've read 3 or 4 books written about the 2nd and have gathered a lot of information. However, it was not until earlier this year, when I went to Timor, that I began to realise the conditions in which these soldiers operated and survived. The mountains, the rainforests, the raging rivers were extremely hazardous, and to think that our fathers not only operated through the harshest of these conditions, but did so with dysentery and malaria, is nothing short of miraculous. The role played by the Timorese people supporting the commandos, and in particular each soldier's credo, cannot be overstated. Unfortunately, the Timorese people haven't been able to make the progress we would want for them, but I will speak of that later. Dad was a quiet man who only spoke when he had something to say. He was a fiercely loyal man who would help anyone. He was very punctual, believing that if you did not arrive somewhere 5 minutes early, you were late. He rarely showed his emotions, and these would bottle up and overflow once every little while. He drank too much and was a heavy smoker until late in his life. He looked after himself. He was stocky, but definitely not overweight. He worked extremely hard and for long hours, whether it was for himself in one of his businesses or for someone else. He started his family quite late, 34 years of age. I often wondered what impact his war experiences had had on him. Terms such as PTSD, depression and anxiety were not common at the end of World War II. The men themselves believed it was up to them to deal with their experiences the best way they could. I know Mum often questioned whether some form of support would have helped Dad. Dad just relied on his mates. Back to the Timorese. We all know that the Timorese have had it very hard for many years. Once the commandos left the island, approximately 50,000 Timorese were killed. Between the early 70s and 2000, numbers varied, but up to 200,000 Timorese were killed during that time. Since 2000, under the United Nations, Timor-Leste has received support from the rest of the world. It's pleasing that even today, various charities, schools and groups continue to support in many ways. Having visited Timor-Leste earlier this year, I'm convinced that Timor will slowly show progress. Progress they will achieve in their own way. Mistakes will be many, but they will want to be in control of their own destiny, and I wish them all the best in their endeavours. Individuals and groups should continue to offer support, but it needs to be support that the Timorese people want and support that helps them to achieve their priorities. We're all extremely proud of the service given by our fathers, grandfathers, uncles and brothers, who so valiantly held up a vast superior force of Japanese soldiers. Their efforts, many commentators believe, contributed significantly to halting the Japanese march through New Guinea and Australia. We are thankful to have had these experiences contributing to our family history, but one thing I would truly wish for is that for the feats of groups of men such as the 2nd Commandos were better known by all Australians and embraced by our community for the part they played in our history and the development of the nation we have become. I'd like to finish by quoting from Colin Doig's History of the 2nd Commandos. In the postscript he wrote, "I don't think there was any show in the AIF who tried harder, worked with the utter zeal than we did. We were very well trained, and we can cast our eyes back to Wilson's Promontory for the basics that stood us in good stead. We were top grade soldiers. We got little recognition from the powers that be. We had the proud record of the longest serving time against the enemy in combat than any other unit in the Australian Army. We can say in retrospect, we did our best. We were a good unit with a proud record against the enemy. Add to this, we were a fairly costless unit. As in Timor and New Guinea, to a large extent we fed ourselves, and every man was a fighting soldier with no behind the lines fill-ins. We who proudly wore the double red diamond colour patch can hold our heads high for the rest of our lives." Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. Before we read the names of the fallen, and by way of introduction to that, Robert Bob Smythe joined the 2nd AIF in 1942 and served with the unit in New Guinea and New Britain as a trooper in the headquarters group of B Troop. He was discharged on the 15th of March 1946. After returning to civilian life, Bob was heavily involved in the unit's association, and even though he didn't serve on Timor, he volunteered many hours over many years, collecting, packaging and sending goods to help the East Timorese. For recognition of his unwavering support of the association, Bob was made a life member in 1968. He was awarded a centenary medal in 2001 and was also awarded the Order of Australia in 2003. Bob was a loving husband of Margaret, father of Brad, Sue and Richard, and grandfather of Thomas and Emily. Bob Smythe passed away on the 17th of August 2016, aged 98. Bob's son, Brad, has kindly agreed to read the names of the fallen for us. As I invite Brad Smythe to come forward, please thank him.
The fallen. These men of the 2nd Second died during active service in Timor, New Guinea, New Britain. Don Airy, Frank Alford, Ron Alexander, Jeff Barclay, Roy Beardman, Huey Brown, Lindsay Brown, Rob Chalmers, Bill Cheverton, Gordon Chiswell, Harry Cole, Harry Cotsworth, Dick Crowder, Owen Davies, Cyril Doyle, Bob Ewan, Bruce Gannon, Ken Hogg, Bill Holly, Phil Hopper, Peter Kemp, Paddy Knight, Tony Lane, Des Leela, Stan Ludlow, Jack Maley, Laurie Maloney, Harvey Marriott, Eric Mitchell, Percy Mitchell, Les Moore, Gordon Malqueenie, Reg Murray, Val Nagel, Jack Northey, Jim Pollard, Don Ramshaw, Keith Richards, Jack Simpson, Andy Smeaton, Fred Smith, Charlie Stanton, Alex Stewart, Bob Swift, George Thomas, Lindsay Thomas, John Walker, Dick Waller, Wally Wordy, Arthur Yates. We honour the memory of these men. We also pay tribute to those members of the 2nd Second who have passed away since the war, and particularly to my father who passed away 2 months ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Our association's president, Peter Epps, is unable to be here because of a family commitment overseas. Our vice president, John Denman, will deliver the president's report. Please welcome John.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the family and friends of the 2nd Second Commando. This year we continue to hold our usual commemorative events, which are participating in Anzac Day and today, of course, today's commemorative service. Our Anzac Day participation was a great success, even though it rained quite heavily, and wreaths were laid at the dawn service, both at the State Memorial and the SAS Barracks, Campbell Barracks. The main march included Keith Hayes, Timor-Leste senior veteran Shanana Guzmai, Timorese freedom fighter veterans, and the families and friends of the 2nd Second. Last December, the association was approached by the No. 2 Company, 1st Commando Regiment. It's a Queensland-based regiment, with a request that we approve of them wearing their double red diamond colour patch on the Australian multi-cam platform uniforms. The committee response was unanimous, yes. We are happy that the 2nd Second will be honoured in this way. Courtesy of Lewis Crossing, our website continues to expand. We have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel. Please visit and like the Facebook page and keep following regular updates. In 2015, the association funded 2 toilet blocks in separate schools in Timor-Leste. At the time of the commemoration service in 2015, one of the units was fully complete, and pictures are actually on the webpage. The other one was delayed due to the wet weather, but has now been complete. And the children in those areas are benefiting from the toilet blocks. This year the committee has approved the funding of two further projects. The first was the Friends at Timor Containers, which is run by the Rotary Club of Hillary's. After they purchase a 40-foot sea container, they fill the container with donated goods. These include the school desks, medical equipment, school books, and then the containers are shipped to Dili, where representatives of the Hillary's Rotary Club unpack them and distribute them. The actual cost of the containers are, they have to, once they're complete, they have to find donors to actually ship the containers to Timor. To date, the project has sent 31 40-foot sea containers to East Timor, and this year we've donated for their container 32, which is waiting to be shipped. So while the club have no problems, the Hillary Rotary Club had no problems with the goods, they do need to raise money to actually cover the shipping costs. The other project that we have provided funding for was professional development for teachers in the Ray Raga School in Timor-Leste, and it involves the training of 9 teachers over a 2-month period. Professional development for teachers models good practice strategies for engaging children in their early literacy and numeracy. Its aims are to improve the educational outcomes by increasing confidence and capacity of the teachers. Most teachers in Timor-Leste, as well as having limited access to resources, struggle with large class sizes. They have received only limited education themselves and don't have many opportunities for professional development. Raga Raga, also known as Hei Hoi, is in the northwest highlands of Timor-Leste, midway between Haliapa and Lifila, in an area where the men of the second segment country spent lengthy periods during 1942. You should be proud of your membership, and the donation monies are improving lives and continue the good work of the second men. So I ask you to encourage, continue fundraising, and I thank you all for coming. Special thanks today go to Rob and Louis Crossing. Thank you.
Just wait for the bus to pass. Thank you, John. In a moment, I will ask you to join me in reciting the ode, which is written on your program. After that, the bugler will play the last post, the catafalque party will present arms, and that will be followed by a minute's silence. The silence will be broken by another bugle call, the rouse. Let's say the ode together. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget. Please be seated. That almost concludes this afternoon's ceremony. Please remember that if from now on you wish to receive emails from the association, you'll need to give us your address through the doublereds.org.au website, unless you're already a member or you've already registered for emails. If you have any questions about that, please see Louis or me in a few minutes. I thank you again for coming. Please join me in thanking our piper, Sergeant Vern Jones, and our bugler, Captain David Cusworth. In a moment, the catafalque party will withdraw, ending our ceremony. As they do that, please join me in thanking them. Thank you very much.